In these next couple of videos, we're going to look at a functionality inside of ZBrush called NanoMesh. And NanoMesh is a little bit similar to MicroMesh, although NanoMesh has much more functionality than MicroMesh does. And I'll explain that to you as we go along here. Also, I should point out that NanoMesh is a somewhat, very, very full um, function inside of ZBrush. All right, there's a lot of stuff we can do with it. So I would encourage you to again come into some place like Pinterest, type in some NanoMesh ZBrush, and you'll see many examples of what you can do with NanoMesh, from foliage and leaves to chainmail. All right, even NanoMesh hair. There's just a ton of stuff that you can do with NanoMesh. So I'm going to show you the basics of it. I'll show you a couple of things that we can do with NanoMesh. But if you want more information, I encourage you to explore ZBrush Central or Pinterest. There's lots of information out there. YouTube has a lot of stuff as well. All right, so to begin, we need a piece of geometry, all right, that we are going to populate with another piece of geometry. So this is similar to MicroMesh, where we took a shirt and populated every polygon with another piece of geometry to create an interesting looking shirt. We can do something similar to that with NanoMesh. So by way of example here, I've got this piece of geometry that I pulled from the primitives here. This is just a terrain 3D that I've brought out. I've made a polymesh 3D, and I've changed the material on it. I'm going to go ahead now and open up another file I have that has several pieces of debris right here. And you can see that that debris has all been tessellated. I'll turn that off right there. And I'm just going to use this rock. I'm going to go ahead and solo everything else out so that the only thing showing right here is this rock. All right. And with this rock showing, what I need to do is come over to brush. And this is what you'll need to do if you want to create anything using NanoMesh. Create your piece of geometry. Come over to brush. Come down to create. Click on create insert mesh. We want to create a new brush. We do not want to append it to our clay brush, so we'll say new brush. All right. It'll give us this right here. And then we immediately come back up to brush, come back down to create, and click on create NanoMesh brush. All right, there we go. So now if I go back to my terrain right here, and let's hover in here a bit. By clicking on because we made this into a NanoMesh brush, what happens is our Z modeler brush gets turned on. All right, our Z modeler brush automatically gets turned on. And if I hover over a polygon and right click, you'll see that insert NanoMesh has been turned on for us. Now, we don't want to do it to a single poly. We want to do it, to all polys. All right, so we'll go ahead and click on all polygons. Now, if I wanted to, I could come in here and select different faces and create new poly groups just for those faces, and then come in here and apply it to poly group all. So it would just select a certain poly group. But we're going to insert the NanoMesh on all polygons. So now when I come in here, hover over a polygon, making sure not to hover over an edge or a point. I'm hovering over a polygon. I'm going to click and drag. And there you go. And you can see what happens here. Every polygon gets populated with this rock that we've created the NanoMesh brush from. And that's fine, the way that looks right there. There may be instances where you want to populate every polygon and leave it exactly the same as that. But we have further functionality through NanoMesh. So if we come over here and scroll down, we have a NanoMesh menu. Let's open that up. And you can see NanoMesh has already been turned on for us because we created a NanoMesh brush. We can turn NanoMesh off right here if we want. Turn that off and turn that back on. There we go. And you'll see right here, right away, we have a ton more functionality than we do with MicroMesh. Remember, we applied the MicroMesh, and that was it. You couldn't rotate it or do much with it. It was there. But here, with all of these rocks here, um, we can do several different things. We can change the size, we can change the placement, we can move them around, we can do all kinds of things. So the first thing I'm going to do in this NanoMesh menu right here is I'm going to come down here where it says random distribution. And right now it says it's at 0. I'm going to go ahead and move that to the right. And you can see as soon as I start doing that, it reduces the number of rocks and it kind of makes them look a little bit more random. So I'm going to lower this down. I don't want this full of rocks. I just want a few rocks on there. All right, maybe something like this. So if I'm doing a landscape model, I may just want a scattering of rocks. Okay. Now, one thing about these rocks is that they are penetrating down through the floor right here. So we can come over here to, say, our Z offset, I believe, and slide this, and you can see that'll lift them up. So we can raise those up and put them right on the floor, right on the ground. Okay, let's lower that down a bit. We can rotate them a little bit, all right, in the X, Y, and Z, as you can see. We'll just give these a little bit of rotation. We can change the width and the length, all right, and the height of them a little bit. All right. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm giving all of these attributes just a little bit of a nudge, because that allows me to come over here and change the variables. Along the right, we have these variable sliders, and this is what's really going to make this look unique. So now when I come over here, I've changed the width. Now I can change the variable, and that gives a randomness. If you look closely, you'll see that some of them are getting bigger and some of them are getting smaller. So a randomness is being created. Same with the length. I'm going to move that variable a little bit, and you can see that again it changes them up, makes them look a little bit different from each other. All right, there we go. All right, and same with this Z offset. I'll slide this a bit, and this will sink some of them down and raise some of them up a little further. All right, something like that. So there you go. So you can see that we can place rocks on a landscape, say, for example, and randomize them. I could come back in here and do the random seed right here, which will keep the same amount of rocks, just sort of scatter them around a little bit more. You see? Okay. All right. Just adds another degree of randomness to it. All right. Now, if I want to add another piece of geometry to this, all I need to do is come over here. I'm going to go back to my debris right here, and let's go ahead and choose this piece right here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put that like that, and I'm going to come back up to brush. All right, create insert mesh. This time I don't want to click new, I want to append it to this already new brush we have right here. So I'm going to go ahead and append it. All right, pressing M key with an insert multi-mesh brush will enable you to view them. We'll say OK. And there we go. So we've got this guy right here. I'm going to click on him, come up to brush, and click on create NanoMesh brush. All right, please select an insert brush and then click create insert. So OK, we did that. We'll click on this. Again, brush, insert NanoMesh. All right. So now I'm going to go back over to my terrain right here. Okay. And I'm going to hover over, and you can see because we created a NanoMesh brush, our Z modeler brush is turned on, and I'm going to hover over a polygon, and this time I'm going to click and then hold Shift and drag, and it's really important you do it in that order. Click, press Shift, and then drag. So I'm going to go ahead and click, press Shift, and drag. And what happens is that new piece comes out. All right. You can see this new piece gets dragged out. Oops. Let me undo that because those other rocks should have stayed. There we go. So let's try this again. I'm going to go ahead and click, hold Shift, and drag. There we go. All right. And now if I come down to my NanoMesh settings here, I can do the same thing. I'm going to go to the random distribution. I'm going to give that a bit of a slide so that I get some randomness here. I don't want all of those. I just want some of them. All right, something like this. And now I want to lay them down a little bit. So I'm going to come over here to I believe it's the X rotation. Let's go ahead and see. Yep. I'm going to lay those down. All right. And again, I'm just going to play with the various rotations. The Z offset, I might want to raise that a little bit, move that. X. All right. Be careful, I don't want to raise it too far off the ground at all. All right. And coming in here with the width. All right. Again, not too crazy. Length and height. Okay. Let's go with the length a bit more. And then coming in and hitting the variables. Okay. So again, creating some randomness. Now, because we have two different things in here, we have the rock and the little slab, we have two indexes. So I can go between the two indexes. If I want to go in and make alterations to the rocks, I can come back here and go slide back to index 0 and play with the random distribution a bit more. And you can see as I do that, the rocks move around. Okay. And if I want to alter or edit the other piece of geometry, I'll just move that index over and do the same thing here. Just play with that random seed. There we go. Okay. Now, a cool thing about this as well is if I come over here and say edit mesh, what I'll get is that piece of geometry showing up. And I can come in here now and say take my move brush. Okay. And I don't know, just make a change just so you can see if I make a change to that and then come back down to my NanoMesh right here. And actually, I think I need to go back to my brush right here. All right. And let's turn edit off. All right. There you go. So now when we come back here, you can see that all of those pieces of geometry have that change made to them, that little tab I've added to it. Okay. So you can make changes to your geometry. It'll propagate to all of them. All right. And let's see, if you want to keep this the way it is, all right, you need to come over here to Inventory and click on One to Mesh. And One to Mesh will now make that all one piece of geometry in your subtool palette, and you can go ahead and continue to edit and sculpt on top of that. All right, so that's the basic functionality of NanoMesh. In the next video, I'll show you how we can use it to create chainmail or armor for a character.